Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, I am going to talk today a little bit about, as you read my marquee, about the Sahel and what can restore it. Well, let me give you my felicitations. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah barakatuh. Lil ikhwani ikhwati fi deen. Wa salamu ala mani tabahuda lil ikhwani ikhwati fi Africa, Europa, America, wa Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Halin wa salim bikum. Anzarama to my Full Bay community and to my brothers and sisters everywhere where they may be. Okay, my brothers and sisters, today I'm going to talk about something again that I'm leading again to another topic in reference to what's happened in Niger, but in the Sahel period. As I've been gathering all the evidence, I waited all week long to see the coup leaders, see those who were disposed and those who disposed the current rulers. And I was waiting for something from them. I wanted to see if they were going to implement the Sharia Allah. Were they going to complement Subhanahu wa ta'ala? I was waiting for them to give reference and to the Prophet ﷺ. I didn't find it. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. And we are allowing the Western media to guide us into backing wayward Muslims. And we as Muslims we are bounded by our laws, not by the laws of the Tubab, not by the laws of any other, but by the laws of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we kill fi sabilillah. When we hate fi sabilillah, because this is part of our iman. When we govern per the Sharia Allah and the Sharia of our Sunnah, of the Sunnah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is the bottom line. If we overthrow our brother in government, we don't overthrow him and use something more evil than what he had ruled under. This is prohibited under the Sharia Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So I give you that backdrop because the Sahel and Africa period cannot be restored until it returns back to the laws of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brothers and sisters, that's the bottom line. And all you have to do is look, we'll be revisiting the same thing. We get new coup leaders in Niger and in Burkina Faso. You'll see 6 months to a year, they will be overthrown. A new group will be brought in. And if you notice, all of these groups are the same. Different pictures, different ages, maybe different complexions, but they have all the same ingredients, democracy behind them. So now us as Muslims, we have to look past all the glitter. They are beefing up the young brother from Burkina Faso. They said he showed out at the Russian summit for the African leaders. And, quite a few showed up there. What was puzzling about that, brothers and sisters, is that not one, from what I understand from all the briefings of what has happened, not one asked President Putin about his Wagner group. Not one. Me, for one, I have a lot of reservations about any of the Tubab nations, period. I don't care if they're the Russians to the Americans. The Russians are better in many regards than all the others. But the Russians, too, are guided by the wealth of Africa. But I wouldn't have, as a leader, I wouldn't have attended this meeting. because even though I got something from it for my people, meaning I got free wheat and some other commodities from Russia, which he did give to the African leaders. He gave them things. Now it's going to save them money, but it essentially is not, because his military wing, let's face it, the Wagner Group has claimed diamond mines, they've gold mines. They're now in Niger, uranium. Do you know how much money they're gathering? Plus the $10 million per month rent fee to have their soldiers there in these particular arenas. This is outrageous. So we look and you think about this. You see Mali, they're paying 10 million per month to the Wagner Group. You see Burkina Faso, they're paying 10 million per month to the Wagner Group. Niger is also paying with diamond and gold mines. Me as a leader, I would have questioned Putin about his military wing of the Wagner Group, because they have been leading a lot of slaughters of Fulani people in particular. And that's worrisome, because when you sit down and think about it, how we're going to allow these guys to come in and do what they've done. And the UN now is onto them as well, but we know the UN doesn't do anything until the people are black. But when the people are black and they do the killing for somebody white or Tubab, then they seem to escape the justice. But when it's completely orchestrated by black folk, then the UN comes in and to go after them, to try to bring them to the criminal courts of the UN. See, so, but in this instance, our African leaders did not ask questions. I would have asked questions. And since the 1400s, we have been doing the same thing. Our African leaders have always went to the Europeans, the Tubab period, for guidance. And this has been a detriment to us. We have always been in cahoots when the commodity in the 1400s to the 1800s was what? Human trafficking. My ancestors, that's how my ancestors ended up in the United States, from the trafficking, and they have black faces to assist them. We still have human trafficking and slavery today, but it's mostly our women folk, and no one is stopping it. Now we have black folk leaders who giving away our wealth to the same people. And this has to be taken into account, brothers and sisters. It's got to be taken into account, because we keep doing the same thing and keep committing the same errors over and over again. And the Sahel in particular can't be restored until it returns back to where our ancestors ran it. Our ancestors had hold of the region. And even though the Tubab was strong, he was not strong enough at that time to unseat the Fulani emirates and sultans. They were not strong enough to unseat the Hausa sultanates and emirates. They were not strong enough to remove the Bambara emirates also, and the Songhai. They were not strong enough. But by the mid 1800s, they began to do what we do now. They have gathered black faces to organize with them to throw out the brothers. As you know, what has happened in slavery. In the 1800s, many of the Juju, many of the Ifa, many of the Obia and Voodoo, those people like this were in cahoots with the Tubab. And the Tubab slavers came in and they were in cahoots with them. And so when they began to take the Fulani, Bambara, the Wolof, the Mandinka, the Mende, and all these groups, and the Igbo, I mean, you name it across, Hausa, they began to enslave them. They needed black faces to assist them. And this is why this tragedy has not been countered yet. Only a few of our African leaders have admitted to the role that our ancestors played in sending my ancestors to the United States. And this reparation has to be dealt with. until I believe in my heart, as a Muslim, I believe subhanahu wa ta'ala is waiting for this particular suffrage to come down, where all of our leaders in the ECOWAS and all the places where they were involved, that they all in unison come and admit to what they had done, okay? And speak for our ancestors to say, look, we did wrong. We sent our brothers and sisters to a hellhole in the United States. And that has to be admitted. Until that time happens, we're not going to see any success. Secondly, to that success, we'll not see any success in the Sahel until they return to the way our brothers ruled. We're not going to see any success. I don't care how many of these young, brilliant brothers, yes, in their own right, they are, but they don't have subhanahu wa ta'ala in mind. All you have to do is look at their speeches and you tell me. If I put a speech where I talked about last week of Mohammed Morsi, rahimahullah, who was killed in Egypt, who was ruling. If you want to see a Muslim speaking correctly to others in regards to any issue, that's who you need to follow. You see the leaders that we have now supposed to be Muslim, they're over championing democracy. Not him. He didn't say that. He said the exact opposite of that. See? So let me give a shout out here to our brothers and sisters. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Marcus. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Wuku. How you doing, brother? Salam alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh, Lil Okti Fi Karima. How you doing, my dear sisters? Thank you for showing up today. Now let's get to this, brothers and sisters. Is the ECOWAS right or wrong in this situation about Niger? It is learned that they will invade with the help of the Tuba powers. Here we go again. Especially the Ghana president and the new president of Nigeria, they have been talking very tough about going in to restore the Fulani killer, the ex-president of Niger, and talking about to restore him back into power. I hope they don't do it. But as you heard what has happened now, brothers and sisters, the Mali and the Burkina Faso, their military regimes now, they said they will come to fight ECOWAS and anyone else who will come to invade. Now also in this mix is the Wagner group. Wagner said they will back the current coup leaders in this region. They will back them. I will get into that segment another time to make sense of it all. But today I'm going to concentrate basically on this governance, which is leading to these coups after coups. And so is the ECOWAS right or wrong in this situation? I'll let each one of you decide on that. I'm going to say no. In my eyes, I say no, it is not right. It is learned that they will invade with the help of the Tuba. This is no different than, again, back when they were sending my ancestors into the United States. They always had the Tuba with them. They can't do anything without a Tuba supervising them. That's why I'm looking at the situation. I'm starting each week. I'm starting to lose have less respect for them as I see the dirtiness of what they do. They talk good, but then you see it's the hypocrisy. They talk against the West, but they use their governance. They talk against the West, but yet they bring the West in to go to kill other black faces. And it's the same formula since the 1400s. How can we dictate terms when each ECOWAS leader is dealing with Fulani insurgencies? Brothers and sisters, let's look at this for real as what it is. You look at this, the corridor of the Sahel. Each of these groups have a Fulani problem. Each one has a Fulani problem, and none of them have handled it correctly. Each one has decided to kill us. So I'm going to use the vernacular of Compton in this situation. How in the hell can they go on a moral stance to go to Nigeria and to Niger and tell the current leaders what they should be doing when they're killing other black folks under their watch in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Mali, and other places? How? How can they go and preach? It's the same thing as the Americans do. The Americans come into Africa and they preach human rights, and they got the worst human rights record. And I can attest to that inside the United States. We all know that. Everybody knows that now. This is what the ECOWAS is doing. They're going to Niger and trying to preach how holy they are, when in fact their backyard is filthy. It's full of blood, Fulani blood on top of that. See? So they're wrong in this. Now, let's go to this part. These particular Muslims who overthrew their governments, did they review the Quran before they did it? I would say no, they didn't. Did they review the hadiths of our Prophet ﷺ about overthrowing another Muslim brother? No, they did not. After doing it, did they mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger? No, they did not. And this is, again, what I'm talking about. I'm chiding them about that. Because me, frankly, I'm tired of seeing Muslim, quote unquote, Muslim leaders get up on the national stage, international stage, and talk like a disbeliever. I'm sick of it. I'm waiting to see the real Muslim, go up there and he start his conversation by saying, Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim. I'm waiting for that. And I'm waiting for them to give the proper correspondence to the disbelievers, as you hear me say when I talk. This is the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ, and it's proper because you give everybody, even the disbelievers, you still give them their respect, and you give the respect to your brothers as well when you address the people. They don't do that. See, so that's a botherance. And did any of them say they were going to implement the Sharia Allah? So why did they confer with subhanahu wa ta'ala's enemies before the coup? Are you getting the picture, brothers and sisters, what I'm talking about? Look past the glamour that you see the West who are backing these coup leaders because they come in with democratic ways and means, which they know is not working. It hasn't worked, and it led to coups after coups after coups. We'll be back here talking about the same issue on the new coup leaders. They may be 1 year or 2 years in, and they'll be back where people start to rebel against them because they're using, again, crooked governance. Democratic ways and means is not approved under the Torah. It's not approved under Sharia Allah. Both the Torah and Sharia Allah are basically in the same thing. But the Sharia Allah that we understand in Islam has superseded even the Torah. But the Torah is still better in use than the democratic ways and means because the Torah was revealed by subhanahu wa ta'ala to his prophet Musa alayhi salatu salam. See? Did subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal this to any leader? Why, if he did, then why do we have 300, 400 different ways? We get 10 people, put them in a room. Each one will have a different version of democratic ways and means. None of us will be able to get it, quote unquote, right, because it's not right by subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not revealed by subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's man-made, and it's man-made by the Tubab on top of that. See, so I'm putting a picture to you so you can discern and not to follow what you see. And stay and refrain from it so you don't go to the hellfire. You don't support any of these leaders. The coup leaders, you don't support them. Who just did it, you don't support them because they're not approved by the Sharia Allah that what they have done. As you saw what I said here, I asked a question. I said, okay, did they review the Quran before doing it? No, they did not. Did they review the hadiths of the Prophet? No, they did not. After doing it, did they mention Allah and his messenger? No, they did not. When they got up there to speak after they overthrew their brother, did you hear any of them say, Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim? No, they did not. Did you hear any of them give the kudos to our Prophet ﷺ? No, they did not. Did any of them say that I'm here to take over the reins because I want to implement Sharia Allah? No, they did not. So therefore, we don't follow them because they are issuing in another governance of another form of democracy that will be overthrown in months to come or a year or so. And we'll be back talking about these, and it'll be another group to overthrow them. Because Subhanahu wa ta'ala is not backing any of them. As I said again, I want to review that. I believe in my heart, truly, until our leaders, and we have a preference of even our Muslim scholars in the region, when they give a blanket, ask for forgiveness for what they had done to their ancestral brothers by sending them to the Americas and aiding the Tubab in it. We need a collective talk about this, and we need to clear it. I think in my heart, Subhanahu wa ta'ala is waiting for that in order to start to cleanse the region. But right now we have devil-filled individuals running all over the place. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand is not guiding anybody. And this talk about what they have done to our ancestors, sending them over to the Americas, has to be talked about, and has to be a forgiveness done, and a reparation has to be given to those descendants who were wrongfully taken by the Tubab with their assistance. We have to get that straight. And then we have to go back to Sharia Allah. Our ancestors ruled from the 700s. When our ancestors began to, in jihad, they began to implement the law of Islam, Sharia Allah. From the 700s to the 1800s, brothers and sisters, we were running, and look how successful all of these sultanates and empires were. When we forgot that, and then we had a lot of treachery and so forth and so on, look at the state we are today, trying to run the law of the Tubab in our lands, and what has happened to us. You think about that. Now, the coup in Niger has raised the issue. Why so many African state failures and coups? You know what that is. Subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't allowing any Muslim state in Africa or the Sahel in particular any success. None of us are being successful. I don't care if it's in North Africa all the way to South Africa. All of us are marred in a lot of corruption. Our governments are so corrupted. The people are satisfied with the governance. Subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws are not being adhered to. We have corrupted leaders who have corrupted associations with those who are enemies to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, who told you in Surah 60, verse 1, don't take my enemy and your enemy as friends and protectors. He tells you that in this first verse of this particular surah, Mutahina. That's the name of this surah. It's beautiful. He says, don't take my enemy and your enemy as what? A friend and protector. What are our leaders do? They're doing that. They're taking them as friends and protector, and the mu'mineen, they don't. I ask the question now, how many of these leaders, how many of the coup leaders have the ulama around them as a sure counsel to guide them to make the right? None of them. They don't have anybody. They only have other people who are like them, who are modern Muslims, who have no inkling about the Sharia Allah. And they also have the Tubab. Our scholars who are in the back can't speak. because they'll get arrested or killed. This is who I don't back these guys. And these guys are Muslims who took over Burkina Faso. You see the young brother, okay? Very, very intelligent, very astute African brother. Very, very astute. But he's a Muslim. But if you listen to his conversations, it's disgraceful. He quotes Che Guevara. Remember the revolutionary leader back in the 60s? Malcolm X, Malcolm Al-Haj, he knew him, and they were good friends. This man here, this brother, quoted him. In his talks, you never heard him even mention anything about Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He used at the conference with Russia, he used the word God. He didn't say Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't say Allah ta'ala. He didn't say that. He didn't say ta'ala. He didn't say anything like this. He talking about God. So what does he mean by God? And then he goes in talking about his country, saying he has to go fight his brother Muslims. He called them all terrorists. This is not a Muslim talking, because those brothers want to fight there because of this governance that's been killing them. And they're in cahoots with the Tubab, and they're giving the wealth away. The Mujahideen there, their children will not be able to prosper because these people here are giving their wealth to the Tubab. So they're fighting them to take control of the government because they want to issue Sharia Allah. This is a brilliant young brother. He's got potential, but his Iman, Islamic faith, is way out. He's gone. He's out. So, brothers and sisters, you see the picture that I'm giving you now, and what I'm chastising them. And I want you to think this. Again, this may be mundane to a lot of people. A lot of people will be upset about this. They'll say they don't agree because they see the glitter. They see all the Tubab media come and give these guys kudos. Oh, you see this young brother from Burkina Faso. You see the new president, the new junta leader in Niger, and because they're going to push for democratic ways and means. You don't see. I see through this nifaq or treachery that the Western media is trying to propose. And you'll see African pundits, black folk, talking about the democratic ways and means are set back because what happened in the coup. No, it's not. You know why? Because those who overthrew them are bringing in the same type of governance. Incredible. So, and if you're going to overthrow somebody, if you're going to do it, which you heard me say, and I gave some classes about this in the past, you have to do it according to the way the Prophet planned and by the ijtihad has been given by rightful scholars of the past. Our scholars of the present have to look at how they handled this in the past, and they have to give a fatwa. This is the way it was done by our ancestors. You look at all the way the Fulani type, the Fulani mixed, Fulani Emirates and whatnot. They have a system which I still revere today. And it was showcased in Morocco. That's right. You said, what? You listen to my talks about this issue, about the sultanates and who were the main stock of those sultanates. They were Fulani. Some Bambara also mixed in with this, and also some from Hausa were also mixed, but they came from the south and they formed the sultanates, as you understand in Morocco today, the famous five. Do you know how they handle situations? If they wanted to put up a masjid, they got a fatwa first from the ulama, our scholarly body who investigated if this is in a good region, if this is in a good, if it was to be approved by Subhanahu wa ta'ala to put his building and his place of worship in this area. They got a fatwa for it. When they want to go to war and fight, they got a fatwa. When they decided, like in the Andalus case, if you listen to what I talk about in Andalus, what happened in Andalus, when in the 10th century, we had a first coup, so to speak, the first of the coups, so to speak. In some ways, we had other ones in the Jazira Arab in the Middle East, after the Prophet, we had some that. But I want to talk about our part here in Africa. In the 10th century, the Murabitun came into the Andalus and they unseated the rulers that were there in Andalus. They got fatwas. Before they went in and to take out the ruling class, they got fatwas, brothers and sisters. That's the way we should be doing our business today, and go by our ancestors and the way they did things. They got fatwas. The fatwa is sanctioned by respected ulama body. We have brilliant African scholars. Across the board, all over the place. We have brilliant statesmen. And these brothers here in Africa know their business as far as Islam and Islamic law. They understand that. Okay? And leading the way and leading the charge, especially in West Africa, are our Fulani scholars and scholarly body. We have brilliant scholars. If we go back to this system and bring this back, subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us for it. Because now we're putting his remembrance in there, because our scholars will draft a letter, and they will draft you a ruling, and they'll give, according to the Quran and the Sunnah, to give you that power to do it. And now you have the approval from subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you approved. And if you die in this state, you are now martyred. If brothers and sisters, if you go fight now, okay, if you go fight for the Niger junta and the Burkina Faso junta, you're not going to die as a martyr. You won't, because they're running democratic ways and means. It's not approved by subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what you're going to go fight? You're going to go fight another Muslim to bring him from the Islamic law, bring him to the kufr hakimiyah, which is democratic ways and means, and you die in this process, you're not a martyr. If you die after there was a fatwa given, and it says you need to go fight these brothers because they're wayward, and we want to bring them back to the Sharia, and you die in this process, you're covered. But you're not covered when you go fight for the current regimes that we have all over the place in Africa. You're not covered because they're running by democratic ways and means. You're not covered, brothers and sisters. You're not covered. And I hate to tell you that. And the day of judgment, you'll suffer for it. I'm not saying that you're going to stay in the hellfire. That's not what I mean. I'm not here for that, because subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But we know what our Prophet has said. So you may have to go, and there's some conditions. I don't want to get deep into that, but there's conditions where you'll go to hellfire for a while, and subhanahu wa ta'ala will restore you. I won't get deep into that. But me, I don't want any of that. I want to go straight to Jannah. I want to go straight to there. I don't want to go to the hellfire because I did certain things first to get cleaned up, so to speak. And we have names for that, but I won't get into that. The insatiable rigging and Muslims implementing democracy by constitution could be apostasy. You know why? Because when they implement this, they implement where we have to almost basically worship men and constitutions and a flag. There's only one flag in Islam. If you look at this, I'll go into that another time, but there's only one flag that's approved in Islam. And even though our wayward brothers who use this flag and misuse it, but we only have one flag. And I won't get deep into that. But when we go in this constitutional law of democracy and stuff like this, it's most likely apostasy, because you're asking me and other Muslims to follow this, and you're asking us to adhere to shirk billah. because it lacks the remembrance of Allah and his messenger. And it creates the open door for disbelief. That's right, brothers and sisters. Our prophet said about this issue that subhanahu wa ta'ala, his decision is the best of the decisions. But our leaders are not using it. Our leaders, they don't use that. And that's to their detriment. Now, I want to get into something here. I'm going to take you to Surah 49, Hujurat, because this is pertinent to what we've been talking about. When you look at the tafsir of this particular surah, it's very, very telling about what's happening in the Sahel in particular. Some of the tafsir, the prophet's decision is the better decision. When you go back to look at the way the prophet ﷺ handled his business and with disbelievers, this is the best decision for all of us. We should revisit that and constantly revisit it, get refreshed over it, have courses in this. And the second part to this, part of the tafsir, as you understand, there is a verse in Surah Hujurat where it talks about investigating the reliability of the news conveyed by wicked people. Brothers and sisters, when I talk about, and I say tubab, I'm not talking about condemning all Europeans and all white Americans or Canadians. No, I'm not condemning all of them. No, I'm talking about those in the government positions and all of these others who are in various racist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, like the Nazi groups, and all of these others. And there's others, political parties who advocate a racial purity, that they are superior to others. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the rank and file tubab who walks the street, who doesn't do anything and nobody. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the government bodies. I'm talking about the political apparatus. They're racist. I'm talking about the laws that they implement and those who adhere to that and who benefit from that and don't speak up against the racism. And they benefit from it, from this racism, and they don't speak. I'm talking about all of this and all the racist groups that they have, neo-Nazis, the Klan, and all these other militias and all that. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the tubab. I want that understood. When these governments come to you and they have noted for this, and a lot of times they will lie to get you going, and they come to talk to you in there, subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a warning, giving me and you a warning. He says, investigating the reliability of news conveyed by a wicked person. So when the tubab comes to you and start talking about, oh, you see these groups of guys, there's Yahya and there's Ahmed and Muhammad and there's Amina, all these people, they're Fulani. This is what I think they're doing. You go and do this. These crooked democratic leaders go to kill us based upon their testimony. And then they get money for killing us on top of that. And then when they go and they implement the laws that the tubab told them to do, then when the Fulani fight back, they call this terrorism. But as you heard me say, many of our Fulani groups have erred because their retribution has been too vicious. And they too have been wayward in their application of their resolve to get justice. And some have become, quote unquote, bandits. Some have become, quote unquote, muharaba, where they're in the forest and they waylay people who are traveling on the roads and all that. We call this muharaba. And the Prophet ﷺ is hard about the Muslims who do this particular terror, where they kidnap and kill and waylay people in the open road. These people are called muharaba. You look it up and you look at the penalties for those caught for that. And our brothers, I understand why our Fulani brothers are doing what they're doing. They have no ways and means of income because it was taken from them. But subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of judges. he told you to be patient. I know it's easier said than done, but he didn't ask you to go to kill and kidnap to take money. And now some of our Fulani brothers who are doing this are killing other Fulani who have money, and they're kidnapping them and killing them. And I'll get into this right now to tell you something that why this is wrong. In in this particular surah 49, Hujurat, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is also giving this guide, making peace between disputing Muslims. Interesting. He did not tell you. You heard what I said about the Hadith. He never told you to go to the Mushrikeen, which is the Tubab governments. He said, don't go to them because they will lead you astray, which they have led our people astray. There's two parties who's fighting. When we fight fi sabilillah, we're bringing them back to the Sharia Allah. We don't go fight like you see today. The Americans come in with their terror programs, and they begin to go after strong Muslims like myself. They beat them, they kill them, they scare them, they terrorize them, they threaten them. And what is this dispute with us? We didn't do anything to anybody. We didn't hurt anybody. We didn't steal from them. We didn't take their income. We didn't take their wealth. We didn't steal their property. We didn't hinder them in any possible way. But yet they go after us, see? And then they have other Muslims to back them. So there's a dispute between me and my Muslim brother. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala talks about that. And in this particular verse, he gives the authority to the rulers to fight the one who's transgressing Allah. If both groups are doing it, he brings them together to get them to mediate and to stop. That's how we do it. This is no different than the Sahel, what we should be doing today. We should be mediating with our brothers. Sheikh Gumi there in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, he tried to do this. And there's others who try to do this as well, who try to mediate between the government and some of our brothers who are wayward and so forth, and some of our mujahideen groups. It's incumbent that we do this. It says, therefore, Allah calls both opposing groups among Muslims, believers, although they are fighting each other. And are in the hadith, and other scholars relied on this hadith as evidence that committing sin does not nullify faith. Now, we have groups today, the hardened Muslim groups that make takfir. Give you an example of that. Say we have a group of Muslims in a particular group, and they made some errors. Some of the hardcore groups say you have left the religion because there was a sin made. That's wrong, brothers and sisters. Nobody's following that. There's only a small segment of Muslims following that. Here, it's telling you, you cannot nullify my faith. If you catch me around the corner one day, I got weak, and some brother gave me some wine. And he asked me, he said, Sheikh Yahya, please, can you taste this for me? I didn't know that it was wine. I thought it was fruit juice, and find out it was wine. But some brother over here saw me, and he made takfir on me. And he said, you're ready to be killed because of it. This is what we're talking about here. You cannot nullify my faith based on what you saw here. It's a sin. No matter how major the sin is. If, again, I got weak. I've been seeing a woman. I've been seeing this woman, for a while. I've been looking at her down the street, and suddenly I decided to go make a visit with her. Does that nullify my faith? No, it does not. It's a major sin. Yes, I have to atone for that, but you can't kill me for it. But under the Sharia Allah, if there's 4 witnesses who catch me making, sexual act with her, that's a different matter. I've talked about that many times before. The creed contradicts the creed of the Khawarij. Now, the Khawarij we have today are quite a bit different than those of that time. The Khawarij we have today are those who work with the Americans, the Russians, the others to fight other Muslims. We have them everywhere in Muslim states. Their business, they make their money from fighting Muslims like me. They don't fight the Tubab. They don't fight the people who are wayward in Islam, they don't fight them. They only fight the strong Muslims. See, and this is the Qawaris we have today. They're all in the masjids. They memorize the Quran and everything else, but they don't know anything of the tafsir. They're hypocrites. You see them memorizing the Quran. They recite it inside the masjids of Allah, but then when they go outside, they're working with the Tubab groups against strong Muslims. That's right. So they're being chided here. Now, each Muslim that when we have these groups, we can fight the other, but we have to bring him to the right way. The right way is Sharia Allah. Now, if we have a group of like the bandits, we call bandits today. Okay, I'm using that for those who are really strong, wayward Muslims. We have the right to fight them under any law because they are transgressing the human right of another person. When a man or a group of Muslims decide to take to banditry and they go and they kidnap another Muslim and they kill him, see, we have the right to fight him because he is wayward, to bring him back to the right way. We have that right. So, and the hadith says we should help your brother, whether he's an oppressor or being oppressed. If we have a ruler who is not like these guys here, we can go to them and ask them to return back to the Sharia law. Like Sheikh Dudu of Mauritania, are one of our major scholars of Islam in the world today. He advised a year ago all of these rulers to go back to Sharia law to solve the problem so subhanahu wa ta'ala can start to bless us again, because he's not blessing us because we have too much turmoil in all our lands. I don't care if it's to the north, to the south. The Muslims should be leading the way. We should be setting the example of how we're supposed to rule. We're not setting that example. We're not setting an example of how we're supposed to dress and how we're supposed to be acting as Muslims. We're not setting that example. We're making just as many crimes as the disbelievers are making. We're doing the same thing the disbelievers are doing. They see the disbelievers come to our countries. They see us smoking and drinking. They see us fornicating. And then they see our rulers ruling by their law. They have no respect for us. See? So if you hear them background, it's getting close to prayer time. I'll be closing here pretty soon, brothers and sisters. So I give you these situations here, and our prophet wants us to make reconciliation between the groups. We should have that. Right now, our Muslim leaders across the Sahel region, okay, bottom line, they are not negotiating. They're using the sword, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And all of these who we see today who come in and they're overthrowing these governments, they're not reconciliation or anything like this. They're not doing it, brothers and sisters. They are deposing another modern Muslim. As you see here, as you heard me talk about last week about him. He's a Muslim who's moderate, who's modern and secular. They're replacing him with another one that's just like him. So, and now we have this young brother that took over in Burkina Faso. He's not ushering in Sharia law. He's against Sharia law. See? So this is some of the things that, you know, I have to entertain, brothers and sisters, because we have to talk about these issues. This may be mundane to a lot of people, but I have to talk about these issues. I need to get you up to speed on what is happening to the region. And I'm bringing you to something because I'm going to talk about an issue again about these things that's happening in the Sahel. And I'm bringing you to the law so that way you have this backdrop and you can decipher. When you see these leaders take over, you watch them and you listen to them. Don't go by the glamour of it. Don't listen to the Tubab media who glamorize these people. You as a Muslim, you sit and listen to his speech and you wait. I've been waiting for now 2 weeks. I've been watching these leaders. I've been seeing what they write and I've been seeing what they say. I never heard them say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I never heard them say that. I never heard them say anything about our Prophet ﷺ. See, so I've been waiting for that. I don't hear that either. I hear them quoting the Greeks. I hear them quoting the communists over here. I heard them quoting other things like this. None of them quoting the Quran. They don't have not one person get up there to talk about about Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and his laws. No, none of them are getting there talking about our Prophet Islam and bringing his governance his way to the Tubab. They get up there talking about the same thing that the Tubab talks about, and they say they're Muslims. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Our brothers in the past would have taken their heads. These guys we see today, they would have no sympathy for them because they know what they are. They would be a detriment to the Muslims. If they didn't repent, they would be, their heads be taken because they have apostatized from the religion, from what they say and what they do. When you have the president of Nigeria tell you that the best governance is democratic ways and means, what is that? That's apostasy. If you remember right, I gave you a small little portion about the Nawaqid al-Islam Ashra, which is the 10 nullifiers in English, 10 nullifiers of Islam. And 3 of these deal with these leaders that we hear today who say that this is the best governance, not the governance of a Prophet Islam. Then they say they don't even implement the Sharia Allah. All these take you away from the religion. So, brothers and sisters, you know, I give you this, and the Prophet ﷺ made it clear when we have reconciliation, we have the Fulani herdsmen, we have our Afro-Arab, and we have Afro-Tuareg groups, Mujahideen. They've erred in some of the things they've done, but those who govern over them have erred as well. And we have to bring them to peace because the Prophet ﷺ said this, and I've talked about this, and I have to emphasize this. He said, and a hadith is authentic. He said, Muslim aku Muslim, la yudalimu wa la yaslamuhu. Meaning here, we are brothers. I don't care if it's Afro-Arab, Afro-Tuareg, whatever, we're brothers. We have problems, we're still brothers. We don't harm him and oppress him, and we don't surrender him to the enemy. And I gave the class talking about we have leaders today who do this, who get the Muslim brother, we'll get a Fulani brother who they don't like, and the West want to get him bad because he's a strong leader, and we have our leaders give this Muslim to the Tubab to kill him. See, the Prophet ﷺ said, Muslim aku Muslim. Muslim is a brother to another brother. You don't what? Oppress him, and you don't wrong him. You dalimu. La yudalimu. Wala yaslamuhu. You don't surrender him. You don't take him. You don't take the Fulani and give him to the Russians. You don't take the Fulani and give him to the Wagner group. You don't take him to give him to the British. This is what he's talking about. So, brothers and sisters, when we look at this in earnest today, one of the greatest proofs we talked about is we go and return back to our sultanates and our emirates from the 700s to the 1800s, and our leaders review these leaders, how they ran the governments. And they all governed by the Sharia. They prospered under it. They were enriched by Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He gave them wealth, food. He gave them sciences. I mean, he gave all of this stuff from the 700 to the 1800s. The West Africa in particular, and part of North Africa was off the charts. So to the point that the Europeans even brought their strongest leaders and their future leaders to Africa to learn. And it's a proven fact that they did do this. See, they brought them here to learn under us. From that time, when they came out of the Dark Ages, was in the middle of the 1800s. They began to go to our schools. So during those 1100 years, we fielded riches, our accomplishments were off the charts, our governance and our justice in it. The Europeans came to learn from us. See? And they did it only to basically take their leaders to come in, like they did in Timbuktu and Mali, and found gold mines. This started the new era of the Tubab and their treachery to take the wealth of the West Africa in particular. The wealth was gold in particular and human resources. So these leaders who they brought in here came to learn, but they spied on us and reported what they saw. Major differences between our Muslim leaders today, who openly apostate by saying democratic governance is the best. Our antecedents said Sharia Allah is the best. And they say what the Quran says. Our past leaders, we have many. They knew man-made laws forced us to accept partners in worship. You look at the constitutions that our Muslim leaders draw up today, they are atrocious. And anytime our scholars begin to try to introduce more Sharia, we get fighting. The Tubab fights us, and also the disbelievers who, our African brothers who don't want to see this, they want to put democratic ways and means because why? They're involved in mafias, they're involved in criminal activity, they want to steal and rob and so forth and so on. See, so and when they issue these constitutions, one, we have to worship a flag and we have to revere the Constitution. This is shirk billah. This is shirk billah. Because now we have to die for a flag. Now we have to worship a constitution. This is shirk billah. That's why we don't institute democratic ways and means. We have to fight for it and we die for it. You're not a martyr Muslim. You go die and fight for this. You're not to go defend a constitution that's shirk billah and you die under it. You're not a martyr. And because of the forgetting of the obedience to Allah in the process, you're not a martyr. So when these leaders go to tell you under the Constitution, you go fight the Fulani. The Fulani, they want Sharia Allah. You go and you fight them. And you bring them to the democratic ways and means. You fight to go to defend that. You die in that process, you're not a martyr, brother. You're not. So you better be mindful of that. One of the proofs again is Surah 18, verse 110, and I'll be closing here. And so the Sahel is in need of subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, justice, empowerment. You're not going to get it into two factors. I believe in my heart, brothers, especially the West African and East African corridor. We have to ask for forgiveness because of what we have done, especially taking our Black brothers and sisters out from East Africa as well. We have the Arab slave trade. I won't get into that. I talked about that in previous, about a year ago or so. And we have the West African slave trade, and the North African slave trade was also prevalent in this. We should go back to ask for repentance for what our role in this. We should bring the wealth back to our people. These new leaders will not do that because they're going to get wealthy from the Tubab and also from our resources, and they'll have new banks, new bank accounts in Switzerland. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then we need to remove all the rogue actors, hypocrite Africans, and the Tubab that comes into the country. All of this has to be done. Coup leaders and those that expose are the same. Neither mention Allah or his messenger, alayhi salam. They use quotes from the Tubab of the past. They don't quote Usman bin Fodio. They don't quote Ahmed Baba Sudani. Okay, they don't quote Samari Toure or Omar Dao. They don't quote any of them. They quote the Tubab. And they don't use any of the references of the Quran and the Sunnah in their speeches. Shame on them. So when these particular Muslims overthrew their governments, did they review the Quran? No, they did not. Did they review the Hadiths? No, they did not. See, so brothers and sisters, I'm closing now, and I gave you this class on this, and I want you to decipher the news, because I want you to be hard on these leaders that you see today, because it's coming up from you. I don't want any of us to enter the grave, and I don't want the two angels of death coming to me, okay, to question me about why I didn't talk against these leaders and why I sided with them, why I backed them. I don't want that. You heard me say last week, I don't want the Tubab testifying against me in the hereafter, telling that I followed his way. I took his money to go fight other Muslims. I don't want that either. Nor do I want to be under these leaders and I back them. And I back their democratic ways and means and all that. I don't want to be questioned, and I don't want the angels to ask me these questions and say, why you do this? See, I don't want that. So I'm giving you this guidance here for you to look at this process. But the decision is up to you, because you're going to have to account for yourself in the grave. I don't want these things to happen. I don't want to answer about my associations with the Tubab criminals who are in Africa and the Muslim states who are doing the things killing us. I don't want to answer for that. I don't want them to come back and say, Yahya was involved with me. Also, I never asked him to follow me. I never asked him to make a dicker upon me where they put devices, microchips in your finger, where you making dicker to him all day long, telling you your whereabouts, or you carry microphones, and this man is every whereabout. Even when you go to the bathroom, you got to tell him. I don't want them testifying against me on that. See, I don't want the testimony of me walking outside. I see the Tubab criminal. He comes from the embassy or whoever. He comes to me and tell me to do something against another Muslim. And hereafter, I'm going to get in trouble for that. I won't follow that. So, brothers and sisters, I gave you this talk today, hoping that you would discern from what I said. If, again, those new, please subscribe. If you like the talks, and I greatly appreciate that. You can also hit the like button as well, and circulate what my talk, because I give it to you straight, and what I see, I don't sugarcoat it, and I give you exactly what I know and per the Quran and Sunnah. And so with that, brothers and sisters, until the next time, Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.